Hey guys, what's up? It's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel, Real Talk Recovery, where we talk about recovery from addiction and I share my life with you. So, you guys, one of my amazing administrators from my Facebook group, Real Talk Recovery, the Facebook group, shared an article on the Facebook group about medically assisted treatment and 12-step meetings, and I want to share this article with you guys because it is amazing and I can really relate to it, and I think some of you guys will too. So I'm going to read it to you. It's by Elizabeth Brico, Brico, and it was written October 4th, 2017, and the title is, By Shunning Medically Assisted Treatment, 12-Step Meetings Are Making the Opioid Crisis Worse. So here we go. I hope you listen. 3 years ago, I checked myself out of a Colorado detox center against medical advice. I had nowhere to go but the broken down van in which I'd been sleeping with my husband. But I was in the worst part of heroin withdrawal, and all I could think about was ending the pain. On my way out, the resident peer support specialist made one last attempt to stop me. "The only way you'll get sober is by working the steps," he said, referring to the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. I told him I was going to try medically assisted treatment instead. In response, he predicted that I was destined to be a lifer, someone who bounces between street drugs, prescribed medications, and brief periods of sobriety, but who never truly turns her life around. He was right about one thing. I relapsed within hours of leaving the center. But the following month, I enrolled in a buprenorphine program. It has worked for me. Today, I live drug-free in stable housing with my husband and 2 daughters, and I'm still taking buprenorphine combined with naloxone, prescribed by my doctor. Buprenorphine latches onto natural receptors in the brain, the same ones that heroin, oxycodone, and other opiates bind to. These receptors are involved in many of the body's basic functions, like eating, breathing, sleeping, pleasure, and the perception of pain. Buprenorphine partially binds to these receptors, which is why it's called a partial opioid agonist. It is prescribed as an alternative to methadone, which is a full agonist. Naloxone blocks the effects of opioids and is added to prevent the abuse of buprenorphine. Both medications stave off withdrawal symptoms and decrease physical cravings for drugs. They also deter people from abusing other opioids by preventing them from feeling their effects. Buprenorphine and methadone are recognized by World Health Organizations as the most effective methods for lowering health problems, overdoses, and deaths related to opioid abuse. Sadly, there's a lot of misinformation out there about medically assisted treatment. Take, for example, a comment made about medication-assisted treatment by Tom Price, who recently resigned as Secretary of Health and Human Services. Quote, "If we're just substituting one drug with another," he infamously said, "we're not moving the dial much," indicating his clear preference for faith-based and non-psychoactive interventions. The most recognized providers of those kinds of interventions are the 12-step fellowships, which include Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. If that's what the Secretary of Health said works best, we should count ourselves lucky that thousands of free 12-step meetings occur every day across the country, right? Wrong. These programs are making the opioid crisis worse by making recovery from opioid addiction harder than it already is. By turning their backs on people like me on medically assisted treatment to kick opioid addictions, these programs are prolonging addiction and contributing to overdose deaths. Here's what a regional chairperson for NA told me. Quote, "People on methadone and buprenorphine are getting high every day. They're just not buying it on the streets. It's like they're replacing one addiction for another." End quote. As part of their creed, service members of 12-step fellowships are required to maintain anonymity when speaking in the media. This individual agreed to be quoted anonymously. But that thinking about total abstinence is outdated. Dr. Mary Jean Creek, who helped develop methadone as a treatment for addiction, and who now heads Rockefeller University's Addictive Diseases Laboratory, believes it is necessary for habitual opioid users to take replacement therapy medications to correct endorphin deficiencies that develop during their opioid use. You're not going to treat genetics and brain changes with counseling and psychological support, she told me by phone. Writing in Stat, 2 Seattle area addiction experts said that medication-assisted therapy helps stabilize brain receptors thrown out of whack by an opioid addiction, allowing the body and brain to establish a new normal. Narcotics Anonymous and other 12-step programs describe themselves as wholly abstinence-based, but claim to welcome anyone interested in pursuing addiction recovery. The reality, however, is that if someone in medication-assisted therapy seeks the support of a 12-steps fellowship, he or she will most likely be met with a lecture or worse, denied the ability to speak during meetings. I met with an NA secretary who asked me to share his story under a pseudonym. I'll call him Jay, in keeping with the organization's media guidelines and to protect his privacy. Jay, who is in recovery from a 30-year opioid addiction, regularly attends 12-step meetings in Seattle, both AA and NA, and also takes buprenorphine. He recounted that when he first began attending meetings and mentioned his prescription, one member spent 15 minutes ranting that buprenorphine was just a maintenance drug, that Jay needed to get off that crap, and that he was still a drug addict as long as he continued to follow his doctor's instructions. It really affected me, Jay told me over coffee. I was reaching out for help. It was really disheartening. He admitted to relapsing shortly after leaving that meeting. I thought, there's no hope for me. I'm a drug addict. Now sober from heroin for almost a year, he is very selective about where he shares information about his use of medication-assisted therapy. Honesty and community support are essential to addiction recovery. Forced secrecy about medication-assisted therapy compromises an addicted person's recovery by causing him or her to repeat patterns of deception implemented during active addiction. It is anti-ethical to every modern addiction treatment model. So why are we still relying on programs that vilify people who use evidence-based treatment for their recovery? NA and AA are not just widely available. They are often mandated by drug courts, the system that oversees many non-violent drug-related offenders. Even costly rehab centers across the country employ 12-step programs and the accompanying abstinence-based approach. This doesn't make sense to me, since the science of addiction has evolved in recent years to include medication-assisted therapy as a cornerstone of treatment, while the 12 steps have not been touched by science since the 1940s. As someone who has struggled with heroin addiction, I know how difficult it is. Beyond the physical and psychological discomforts, addicted individuals face being ostracized, sometimes even by our own families. Now the stigma against using medically assisted therapy is so rampant, it's even in the White House. As we approach the second year of the Trump administration, the need for camaraderie between those of us in recovery is greater than ever. Many of us rely upon the 12 steps for our sobriety, but many of us rely upon medication-assisted treatment. The time has come for NA and AA and other 12-step programs to update their approach or step aside. Abstinence-based models are too dangerous to rule the recovery community any longer. And this is written by Elizabeth Rico, who blogs at Betty's Battleground. She is also a contributing writer for the Healthy Place Trauma blog. And that's her name right there, so you guys can see. Elizabeth Rico. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this after I read that to you guys, because you guys know that I absolutely love the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. They changed my life, and they helped me to learn a new way to live. That's why I'm sober today, is because of the 12 steps and medically assisted treatment and therapy. All those things combined is what it took for me to change my life. I know a lot of you guys are on Suboxone or methadone, and I want to always encourage you guys to try to work the 12 steps and try to go to meetings and try to meet people in these programs that will take you under their wing and show you how to teach you how to live your life differently as a sponsor or a mentor. I want to prepare you guys who are going out and trying these new meetings and going in. I want to tell you guys to be careful. Share only what you feel like you need to share, and only when you truly know somebody and trust them. When you go into these meetings, don't just raise your hand and say, hey, my name's Nicole and I'm on Suboxone. Sit there and watch and listen and get to know everybody at the meeting, and wait until you divulge that information, because I don't want you guys to have the same experience that this lady had and the same experience that I've had before, because I have been told that I wasn't sober. I have been beat with the NA step work. Even here on YouTube, there was a gentleman who attacked me over and over and over again until I had to block him, because he was telling me that my clean time was stolen, and that me saying I was clean was like, it was as bad as stolen valor and stealing somebody's medal when they're in the army, and you know, like, that's horrible. And so medically assisted treatment is saving people's lives, but that's not the only thing that we have to do. And that's why I recommend the 12 steps, because it's a spiritual based program where you can get connected with a power greater than yourself. But I want you to know that Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not a representative. I am not like teaching their ways. I'm just sharing with you guys what has helped me. I've taken the 12 steps and made them work for me. Okay? That's why we have a MAT support group every Friday, because in that MAT support group, it's all inclusive and we accept you here. That's why I have the medically assisted treatment support group. But I want you guys to know, like, if anybody ever judges you, or if anybody tells you that you're going to be on that forever, or don't you think you need to get off that, I'm here to tell you, please do not let it affect you. Please do not let it make you, please don't let it make you make a bad decision. Please don't let it make you rush off your medication. Take your time and do what you have to do to be your healthiest self. Because if I had let all these naysayers affect me, I would have jumped off too early, and I wouldn't even be sober today talking to you. I wouldn't be here today. You know, there was a time where people in AA and NA, I would tell my story, and then they would comment, "You're not sober. Why are you even sharing? You don't have the right to share." They would come to my Facebook page. They would come to my YouTube page. And that's the thing, you guys, like, a true person that's in recovery, a true recovering addict or alcoholic, is going to love you no matter what. They're going to support you in your efforts, whether you're on Suboxone, whether you're on methadone, whether you're, abstinent, whether you smoke marijuana. They're going to encourage you to do better and to keep pushing forward no matter what. As an addict, I have no room to judge somebody else's journey. And so I had to learn that. Because that's what people are doing when they talk about you or say things to you because you're on Suboxone or methadone. They're judging your journey. And only one person can judge me, and that's God. That's the only person I have to answer to. And so when somebody's trying to judge my journey, that means they're not taking care of their own self. That means they're too focused on what I got going on over here. My whole point of me sharing my journey of being in recovery and being on Suboxone, you guys, is because of this very reason. Because of people who go around and they shun other people who are in recovery just like them, just because the route that they're taking to get to their recovery is a different route. It doesn't matter if you're taking the shortcut, the long cut, over the hill, under the hill, around in circles. It doesn't matter. We're all on the same journey. So instead of ostracizing each other and shunning each other and pushing each other away, why don't we open our arms and uplift each other and help each other and encourage each other, because that's what recovery is about. I support multiple pathways to recovery. I want everyone to know that Real Talk Recovery is about recovery from addiction, no matter how you have to get there. And so that's why I have my channel, and I wanted to share that article with you guys because I knew some of you guys could relate to it, and I know I sure as hell did. And we're making changes, you guys. We're making changes, and hopefully AA and NA will adopt those same changes, and they will realize that judging someone else's journey is not their place, you know? And they will also take their own advice and realize that they are not doctors. You know, what I've also noticed in AA, that a lot of people will say, well, I've got 20 years sober, right? And then you'll find out that they're prescribed Xanax for anxiety. Well, honey, that's the same thing as me being prescribed medically assisted treatment for my addiction. You know, I take it as prescribed, just like the doctor tells me to. A lot of alcoholics do the same thing. They take their medication as prescribed. But because they didn't have a problem with drugs, they don't consider it. So, do you see what I'm saying? There's gray areas. And so that's why every person's journey is specific to them. So judging somebody else's journey is not, we don't do that over here on Real Talk Recovery. So I love you guys. I just wanted to make this quick video, and just remember, like, everybody's going through something. Don't judge somebody else. Just encourage them, push them forward and say, keep doing it. Go, you got to do this. You can do it. Instead of tearing them apart because their journey's different than yours.